morning, good morning, good morning. This is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen here on the case for truth, justice, with the right information to help improve the situation. Empire Talks Back is brought to you by the Improve Association, promoting business and community partnerships. WSS.com. WSSnews.com is the website for West Side Story News. Folks, ask the question. Seek the truth. Think critically. Improve. Increase our quality of life while respecting each other and the planet we share. You can get the Empire Talks Back podcast. It's available on iHeart, Spotify, every place you can pick up a podcast. Please support us, support yourself. Stay alert, stay with Empire Talks Back. That podcast is available. And there is, I guess, about 20 years of podcasts sitting up there waiting for you to find out what we've been thinking about, talking about, and are we consistent in our love for our community as we deliver information that should help save the world, remind you to clean up after yourself, remind you to leave things better than when you found them. Ask the question, are we our brother's keeper? Should we be? Is investing in human potential as a social development tool a productive investment? Or is it something that a brother is expected to do because of a moral commitment? Well, today, the California Reparations Committee is, I guess, about a month away from having to submit its report. Its final report and recommendation to the legislature has to do that on July 1st. Today's guest, Mr. Antonio Harvey, is a writer for the Sacramento Observer, and he's been covering the committee almost since its inception. And we have Mr. Chris Lodgson of the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, a group that, among many issues confronting California's Black African American community, is focused on reparations and has been an active advocate for the reparations process. But we're going to start today reviewing the Ed Sheeran copyright battle over the Marvin Gaye hit song, Let's Get It On. My question is, how similar is the copyright battle to the fight for reparations? Here to talk about it is Jordan Culberson, on assignment for West Side Story newspaper. Jordan, how are you this morning?
I'm blessed, sir. How you doing?
God is great. I'm extremely grateful, and grateful for you, grateful for the opportunity to kind of go through this thing here with Let's Get It On. So let's get it on. Talk about that copyright issue. Tell us what we should be interested in and concerned about.
Well, what's going on is famous songwriter Ed Sheeran, who I feel is the modern day generation of Michael Jackson, in my opinion, is being sued for his song Thinking Out Loud back in 2014 from this copyright song of Let's Get It On by Marcus Gaye back in 1973. Now, in my opinion, I really feel this song should not have been sued right now because, if anything, you should have sued this song back when it first started. So this whole insane, but that's just my opinion. Let's get into the factual events. All right. So we all know Ed Sheeran, British songwriter, very talented, very excellent, and goes out and makes this song. Thinking Out Loud. However, now all of a sudden, on May 3rd of this year, he got to go to court dealing with this nonsense of being sued by many co-writers and even Ed Townsend's own daughter, who is a prosecutor in the situation, Catherine Townsend Griffin. And Ed Sheeran, during the court, he even told himself, he said, I deny these claims. I started this song back in England, thinking about his grandparents and thinking about his relationship back where he started when writing the song. However, he also made a claim saying, if I am pleaded guilty, not only will he pay the fine, but he will retire from singing permanently. And that right there, I can tell you this right there, he's an innocent man. but that's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Could I ask you a couple of questions here?
Yes, sir.
Why would the Marvin or the Ed Townsend estate think that uh, there was copyright infringement? Can you take us to the two songs and compare and show the distinction? I don't think that the Ed Townsend estate said the whole song. I think they probably picked out a part of it that represented what they thought was copyright infringement. Am I right, or did they accuse the whole song, or was there parts of it? And once again, can we hear those parts?
Right. Yeah, we can see it here in a minute. But like it was just really truly just like the beats, like the intro of the songs, what's being copyrighted.
Is it kind of like what we would say? Some of the hip hop stuff that what do they call it when you use some of the music?
Techno.
Some of the sampling. Does it sound like a sample? Eric, are you familiar with the spot on the two records? Can we get to that? Can I hear? Can I hear what's going on, and then can I hear what's his song? Okay, all right. Let's hear Ed's piece.
When your legs don't work like they used to before, and I can't sweep you off of your feet, will your mouth still remember the taste of my love? Will your eyes still smile from your cheeks? Darling, I will be loving you till we're 70.
Oh yeah, there's Marvin Gaye right in there. Okay, I got it. Okay, so what we have there is the use of a few chords that I don't know sure rocked me back to Marvin. But then again, the question isn't for me to answer. It's once again the court who found that the Ed Townsend estate was wrong and that they had no claim. And indeed, Ed Sheeran is still
He
going
was
to keep.
proven innocent.
Yeah, he was.
And
He was.
and the other thing about it was not only that, not only did his attorney Eileen Farkas, even like he's talking about the court, like coming to the beat, he also brought in his guitar during the court and played the intro, and that made the judge understand, he's innocent. There's no way there was copyright right here.
Yeah, well,
there's no way
the intro wasn't the part. The part was once he started, got into the cut there. But at the same time, I understand, and your opinion is your opinion, and it's a great opinion. And plus, you brought some information to go along with it, and that's argument number one. You said he's the new Michael Jackson. That threw me off too. But at the same time, this guy's sold over 150 million records. So there's a lot of people who agree with you. Now, my question is, when you think something is yours and someone else has taken it and not paid for it, you have a right to ask for it, to ask about payment. And I think I want to thank you, Jordan, for your first installment. And we'll look for you, pretty steady to come in with some opinion on this. You can hang on if you want to, but I think you've got something else to do. Thank you for your input on that. We're going to talk about you behind your back as you're gone. So you might. I want to thank you. I think there is a similarity here between copyright battles and the battle for reparations, and there's no guarantee, no matter how similar or how valid the argument is or how invalid it is, as to what the judges are going to say, the people who are ultimately in charge of deciding who's guilty, who's innocent. And guilt does not necessarily mean you're going to get back what you want out of the deal. So
no, you have to have proven. This is me, and I'm going to end it right here. If I knew someone was stealing my stuff, because I do a whole lot of, because I'm trying to be a wrestler, they do a whole lot of promo stuff like that. If I knew someone was trying to steal my stuff, I'm not going to wait 7 to 8 years to sue someone. I'm going to do it right then and there.
Well, they went to court recently, but it took them a while to get to court. And they did initiate that suit not in May. It was well before that. You can't get to court that quickly. But I understand what you're saying. And congratulations on you're going to be a wrestler. You're studying wrestling? Did you say wrestling?
Yeah, I'm trying to get into wrestling. So I'm trying to do my broadcast, like stuff like this, reporting and.
Oh, you're into that. We got that part. But you said wrestling. Are we talking about wrestling in the ring? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's another episode. We're going to look forward to that conversation. And but once again, I want to thank you for your input this morning. And we're going to move on to our other guest and see what the California Reparations Committee has been able to do as they make a quest to get something back that, as a group of people here in the United States, Black African Americans feel that we've been taken for a ride to places we didn't want to go, and certainly have had things that have been invented that we didn't get credit for, work that's been done that we haven't been paid for. And so the concept of reparations is kind of like that copyright battle. You can't really know for sure how it's going to end up, but you can check into it. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to get a chance to speak to, Chris and Antonio, a couple of people. Okay, we've got Antonio on the line. We'll come back. He is a writer with the Sacramento Observer. He's been paying a lot of attention to the reparations battle, and I know he was paying attention to the meeting yesterday, the town hall meeting that took place with the committee. So we'll be back. We'll talk a little bit about that and give you a chance, if you'd like, to give a call in. Eric, what's that number? 909-792-5222. All right. We'll be right back.
Publish your legal notice in West Side Story newspaper. For the best service and the best rates, call 909-384-8131. Publishing legal notices in the city and county of San Bernardino since 1990. West Side Story provides friendly expert service. Call 909-384-8131 to benefit from budget-friendly rates. Whether a fictitious business name, a name change, a divorce summons, or any other legal or public notice, call West Side Story newspaper 909-384-8131. 909-384-8131. That's 909-384-8131.
All right, this is Empire Talks Back. I'm Wallace Allen. We are here today because of things that our parents went through yesterday, last year, and before. We are Echo. We're part of a continuum. We think we're brand new. We think we are super special, but that's because our mothers once again told us so. So with all of that, we have some issues that we need to discuss. But before we get into Antonio Harvey, I'd like to point out that in the city of San Bernardino, at San Bernardino Valley College on the 20th of May, the Joshua White Ensemble, in a special tribute to the music of Thelonious Monk and John Coltrane. That's going to be at San Bernardino Valley College Auditorium. You don't want to miss that. Anyway, I'm not going to miss it. I would hope that you would be there, and we'll see how well they are able to respectfully remember the great music of Thelonious Monk and John Coltrane. All right, we have Antonio on the line. Antonio, how are you this morning?
Morning, Mr. Allen. Thank you for asking. How about yourself?
God is great. I'm extremely grateful, and you could ask me as many times you want to all day, and I'm going to answer it the same way because it's a blessing to be here. And the battle, fit the battle of Jericho, fit the battle of freedom. That's makes you feel good at night to know that you've.
I agree with you. Totally, 100%.
And yeah, and you have a right to definitely feel good because you are working. You know, there's two things you can say. I'm doing well and I'm doing good. Doing well and I'm doing good. Well, doing well has to do with how you're treating yourself. But doing good has to do with how you're treating the rest of the world, and you are doing good. And so I appreciate that part. As you shared the view of yesterday's reparations meeting, town hall, tell us where you are as a person who's been pretty much following this committee since it started.
Yes. Sorry about that, Mr. Allen. Yes. Antonio Ray Harvey, and I'm a reporter for, several entities, right here in Sacramento, California. And for the last couple of years, I have been covering, at least from the Black perspective, covering the California Reparation Task Force meetings. And the 15th meeting was held yesterday in Oakland, California, at the Mills College at Northeastern University. And that was, as I said, was the 15th meeting. And what they have done was finalized recommendations that will be in the final report that will be out at the end of the month. As you had mentioned earlier in your show, that the final report will go to the California legislature to see what they will do with these reparations. And I think it's about like 95 to 100 recommendations that they'll be in front of them, and they will have to, sort them all out. And not all of them probably will be, entered into law, but some of them will. Maybe not any of them will. It's going to be a long process, but it is at the end of the 2-year charge for the 9-member panel who been conducting these meetings and doing these investigations and listening to testimonies and gathering evidence and everything that has to do mainly with some of the atrocities that has taken place right here in California alone. So this will affect at least 2 to 2.5 million Black Californians who are expected to, not all expected, but many of them expected to apply to be applicants to see if there's any form of reparations that are owed to them.
So the committee won't be assigning people to receive it. They'll have to apply.
They will, yes. That is general thinking. I know there's so many, moving parts that go to this, Mr. Allen. Just to pinpoint one thing, because like I said, there's a lot of things going on there. They are going to recommend like a genealogy department, okay, within a de facto Freedmen's Bureau agency, okay. The agency will be handling all the applicants and other services to facilitate reparations for the community. The genealogy department is like, if you have, they will try to help you search out,
prove that you're a descendant.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of a enslaved person or person, and then you can can go from there. There's so many ways that you can go through that.
Let's discuss how that gateway is being created in terms of who is eligible. That is probably one of the biggest concerns that I heard them discussing yesterday. It appeared that certainly we have one faction that's concerned that Black African Americans, descendants of slaves, receive the money, and only, as I think I heard one of the members say yesterday, when the fire department is called and there's a house on fire, they don't put water on all of the neighboring houses, they only put it on the one that's on fire. Inferring that the Black community is on fire in terms of the debt owed, and that debt should be paid to African Americans, Black African Americans, descendants of slaves, and not include others. What's that argument? As a reporter, as you've seen that, what's the two sides of that argument?
Yes. Well, back in March 2022, the 9-member panel narrowly voted to use lineage as a way to determine eligibility. There was
DNA
two
kind
on
of
the
stuff.
table.
Mm-hmm.
Right, DNA. So there's lineage, and then there was race-based. And the race-based was, anybody, that would include anyone.
If you look
Okay.
black, or you claim black, you would be eligible.
In regards to what you said about, the fire department and, hosing down houses and things like that, that would be on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That would include everyone. But California has this law on the books that you all familiar with, Mr. Allen, and that's Proposition 209. Proposition 209 bans
Race-based.
it bans race-based policies. Okay, so on the education level, employment, et cetera, et cetera.
We can't just say, well, and this was an attack on affirmative action, I believe, that you cannot give favor to anyone based on race, which is that convoluted concept of, well, if you're trying to correct the errors of slavery and only want to help the black people, that's basing it on race. And if you're going to base it on race to help black people, then how can you base it on race for the people who are hurting black people?
That is correct. That is the correct clarification for that. And as I said before, Proposition 209, which became law back in 1996, pretty much outlaw, any type of racist programs or funding and anything of that sort, as you have mentioned. Now, the task force, the reparation task force, they had experts come in to talk about that on both sides, and the reason why, and a lot of them agreed that the lineage aspect of eligibility will be easier to defend in court than race-based, because the race-based will fall into the category of Proposition 209.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think it was a 5-4 decision. Like I said, it was a narrow decision. It was spread it out over 2 months.
So it's not
before they made the final decision.
It's not based on me being black. It's based on me being the descendant of someone who was enslaved, and we're
exactly.
So maybe my melanin isn't as strong or whatever. Maybe I don't look black, but we can defend my position in line based on the fact that I am able to prove through lineage, through DNA, that my grandparent, someone along the line there, was enslaved. That's interesting.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I'm glad you clarified that for your listeners so they can understand.
Yeah, but it also brings up another issue real quick, is that where do I get grandpa's DNA from? Where do I get great-great-grandpa's DNA from? How do I know that stuff? I'm not a DNA expert, but it would seem that certainly as you find the solution, you also find a potential argument for the haters to use to stop you from getting there. So this concept of who is eligible, you pointed out that there were a couple of angles. We do have, I don't know if we would call them factions. I think everybody that is involved on that committee is, pretty much looking at it from the specific angle that they're in a position to use. But all of those angles are not agreeable to everybody all the time. Yesterday, they seem to be, I haven't attended, you said this is the 15th meeting yesterday?
Yeah, this was the 15th meeting. Actually, when it started out, we were pretty much in the middle of, the COVID pandemic, and they started out having virtual meetings in the beginning. And then last year around this time, April 2022, they had their first in-person meeting. I think it was supposed to be like 10 meetings all together. So they had to extend the meetings because the law required that they have 10 in-person meetings, which they have had.
Does it limit them to the 10, or can they have more? Because I'm understanding that they've got to complete this.
They had to extend it.
Okay.
They had more, which was, and matter of fact, they basically have one more meeting because the final hearing will be next month, June 29th, here in Sacramento, when they submit the, that's when the final report actually is going to come out. Okay, so it will be submitted and it will be out and published for the public, all to see.
But the number,
they were mandated to do 10 meetings, but they had to extend it because of the virtual meetings that they had, and
so they were
was part of the state law.
Mandated to have
those.
Mandated to have a minimum of 10 meetings, or
a minimum of 10 meetings.
Okay, so that time frame, it all has to be done by June 30th, but
correct.
They could have 100 meetings if they chose to between now and then.
And they have.
Okay, there you go.
Aside from those mandated meetings,
yes,
they carved into it community listening sessions.
Excellent.
Which were held all around the state too by different organizations that were basically sanctioned by the task force to put on these listening sessions. I couldn't tell you how many the number of those, because I know there was about 4 or 5 of them here in Sacramento alone. That there was a few in the Bay Area alone, that a couple of them that I attended, and then I know there was all sorts of ones down there in your area in Southern California. Okay, but that was just to keep the community abreast and aware of the activities that were taking place, with the task force. And that wasn't easy either, because they didn't really have a communication arm they would really have the task force would have issues with communications, trying to get the word out to people so they can know about the meetings, and that was the background of the whole thing. So a lot of people didn't even know that these things were taking place. Probably a couple of your listeners right now didn't probably know that these meetings were taking place. So that was one of the drawbacks that they had through this whole 2-year process. That in my opinion, from my perspective, was not really handled well. I mean, they had like 2 or 3 communication firms on the table, and 3 of them quit because of the difficulties they were having, trying to work with the task force. And then there's one right now, Charles Communications, who's the current one. I think they started back in September 2022, but they had to play catch up.
Was that a cash flow issue? I mean, it's very seldom that PR companies would quit. When we say quit, I don't understand that part. Because we're talking about PR companies.
I think from my understanding, because some written statements that came from, I'm not going to name who the communication firms are, but I was just saying in general that, the way the proceedings were going, they just didn't feel like that they were being presented well. They felt like they were being attacked.
So some committee members were kind of getting off on the communication companies then. Okay. Now
there was a lot of stuff that
I was going to ask this question because you have 9 committee members, and we all know that the best way to get nothing done is to send it out to a committee and put as many people on the committee as you possibly can. In that regard, it appeared that the 9 committee members, though they have their little factions, seem to be pretty smooth in terms of process and procedure, and almost at this point a little tired of the process, because it seemed like yesterday they were willing to, just say, hey, let's just do what we got and let's go forward. And then there's, of course, other people who are still on edge about some of the things that are going to be recommended, which I think is proper. As you've watched the committee and watched these meetings, I noticed yesterday there were some dissenters in the audience. How have people who've attended the meetings in general been treated in terms of hearing their opinions? Are we having repeat protesters of sort, or are they able to kind of deal with the things that are being protested about so that those folks are satisfied at the next meeting, or how's that been working?
Well,
and we're they're begging for a break, but we're not going to take it. We're going to ignore that one. So,
okay, all right. To be perfectly honest, Mr. Allen, there has been a lot of tension among with Chairperson Camilla Moore.
Let me ask you this before we get started: how much are the committee members being paid? Are they being
That
paid?
hasn't. I think this was a non-payment. These were non-payment
Okay,
positions.
so I can
Okay,
I can
they were
sit.
appointed by the governor and a couple of the legislators. All 9 of them, but there was no financial agreement as far as assigning them.
Do you
Of
think?
course, they pay for all their traveling expenses and
Yeah,
hotel expenses and things like that, but these were not paid positions.
yeah. You're not making up for the money I didn't make.
Yeah.
And
And understand this too, before you, I do want to preface the fact that these were some great minds in the room. There was only
absolutely.
one non-black person on the panel, and that was Japanese American, the attorney Don Tamaki, who has worked on some court cases, pertaining to his community, with Executive Order 9066, which I won't go into. But across the board, you had educators, you had lawyers. Okay, you had 2 legislators on there within Senator Stephen Bradford and Assemblyman Reggie Jones Sawyer.
People whose
These
time
people
is
were,
valuable.
on top of their game. It was tough. There was some, back and forth going on, and there was a lot of allies and things like that. But I think they did the best of what they had to work with as far as working with each other and the tools and the resources that they have that was provided by the California Department of Justice. So in that regard, I really do think that they did the best job as possible because it was not easy. Okay, and especially dealing with the community, the eligibility community as it's been put forth. Dealing with them because as we mentioned before, got all these different factions and groups. And everybody's not on the same page. Everybody has their differences and opinions.
But that's proper.
At some point, they managed that really, really well.
Yeah, that's very proper because if they'd all come in on the same page with the same ideas, then we'd be wondering, did we miss something here in terms of how we explore this deal? I mean, stuff like direct payments, or should these, some people want cash payments in their hand right now or whenever possible. Others are saying that, well, no, we need to go through some administrative, we need to set up some kind of process. Freedmen's Bureau. Some are saying, well, what about credit? Wouldn't a credit line be better? Because we don't know how to handle. So you've got to deal with all of those things. And once, like you say, you've got a very diverse group of experts. I was proud to hear them argue because that means they're not all in the same pocket. They're not all looking at it the same way. And there seemed to be a little sharp sarcasm here and there, but it was basically respectful. I've been in meetings where we were, nobody got cussed out in normal cuss out, but they got cussed out in in process and procedure and extra words that were, high level, but really derogatory. So I think I was proud of the group as I saw them shut down yesterday. I was even proud of the distractors because, at one point the chairperson said, I'm going to have to call Highway Patrol to get rid of these people. Well, they didn't.
There was a person escorted out. There was a person escorted out
but he didn't just leave right away. He didn't just leave right away. He didn't.
He
gave the same disrespect.
He was given a lot of leeway, but he
was. He gave them the same disrespect they would give to the basic white city council meeting. Okay, he was a protester. I couldn't hear or see what he was doing, but he was deep in his protest. And she was very, very, I'm going to threaten you with the police. But he didn't go for the threat. They had to actually call the police and walk him out, which was, once again, you got to do it. You got to do it. So I was proud of both ends of that because I've been on both ends of that. I've been in a meeting where I didn't feel that I was being respected and probably acted the same way he did. And I've also been in meetings where we were in charge of the decorum and in charge of the process, and we had to deal with folks who disagreed with that. So once again, I'm proud of the process and how we're going on it, but I also understand these questions. How do we deal with direct payments, or should it be the Freedmen's Bureau? And then it should it just be black African Americans or descendants of slaves? And should it be long-term payments, $5,000 a month for a lifetime, or one-time payment? Credit or cash? Those are paying the institution, set up education. So what are some of the elements that you see that you think are going to work out pretty good? And what concerns you at this point in terms of the?
Well, over the last 2 years, I could tell you, as far as my career in the being a journalist, I've learned so much about California Black history on top of just learning about U.S. history. So I really appreciate the experience, the process that I have just went through, and I think there's more to come. How this will, the outcomes, the results, of course, I couldn't tell you, but what I do understand is, California could be the leader of bringing, more national attention into possibly getting something done. I don't know if they're going to be able to get all things done because, as you have mentioned, you talk about direct cash payment, then there's other form of reparations that have been spoken over the course of 2 years as well. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if all of these things is going to be taking place, but at least California could be the leader in that respect because U.S. Congresswoman Barbara Lee was at the meeting, the early portion of the meeting yesterday, and I think she's working on a bill that sponsors putting together a committee as well on a national level. Okay, because everyone, not across the country in the world, is watching what California is doing. I do like that aspect of it. Okay, and it's not a bulletproof process. We understand that there were some mistakes that took place. As you said, work with a body of people, the bureaucracy and things like that. You're going to have these things, but at least you know that you're working towards an objective, and getting these things done. So it's not about bulletproof process, but it is definitely a start. And definitely a good start, if you ask me. And that's just, from my opinion, journalistic opinion too, as well.
Well, that's an important fact-based opinion. Your journalism commitment is one that requires you to look at it from at least 3 or 4 different angles. And
let me say this, Mr. Allen. While we're talking about that journalistic opinion, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I did not know some of the things going into these things. Especially with the U.S. highway system, how it was built back California, the U.S. Highway Act of 1957, and how it was designed to go through like 41 cities and cut through low-income Black communities and pretty much destroy housing and businesses and everything like that, okay? Those people are entitled to some type of reparations in some form, okay? Especially right here in Northern California, because I checked out the highway system, say like in the San Francisco Bay Area, okay, where you have all these interstate highways and how they all make a beeline into San Francisco, but they cut through certain neighborhoods, okay?
No, they cut through black neighborhoods on purpose. They cut through black neighborhoods to break up the so-called ghettos, and anything that was not a haven for white people was considered a ghetto because white people didn't want to go into it.
Yeah.
We go look at
some of these were towns and communities, as you probably all well know too. They wiped them all out. I'm learning about what's going on in Russell City.
But you know who paid for that?
Gone.
Who paid for that was the defense budget. President Eisenhower was smart enough to say, we're going to be, if we need at any point to defend America by rolling our military across these highways, they need to be able to support the tanks, the movement of our military machine. So they used the defense budget to build these highways. Now, the policy of where the roads would go was pretty much left up to the local folk who had the universal attitude of racism that says, we just go through the black neighborhood and we're going to solve 2 or 3 problems. And so you're right, as we look back now.
You're right as well, too. With Eisenhower, it started with his administration.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so I've always said, well, if you really want to get something done, tie it into the defense budget, because that budget is without a bottom. There is never anybody arguing about the defense budget. That money, they got so much money there, they burn it up going to the moon and places like that. I'm one of the people that believes that credit is an amazing thing. It empowers the whole world of capitalism. And the fact is, the United States has the greatest credit on the planet because the United States promises, I'm going to borrow this money from my people and we're going to pay it back in 50 years. And that's what they do. So this concept of the debt ceiling and all of that is, don't get me started, because I'm just one of those people that when we talk about reparations and we find the resistance to it, we wonder why people resist. And it's probably, again, because of those communication companies, the PR people, whatever, because for some reason we don't think reparations exist anywhere except, black folks asking to be paid for something and nobody else has been paid. Excuse me, the first reparations dealing with enslavement in America was paid to the ex-slave holders.
Yeah.
It was like, well, we took your free labor away here, we're going to pay you for it. And they didn't have any problem doing it. And as we look at who else has been getting reparations, not to say that they don't have a right to it, but when we get over to black reparations, we seem to have this issue. So one of my questions is, and as a journalist, have you dealt with, as we ask the same people to pay us, who we know were the same ones who ripped us and ran and who are benefiting from that echo, we understand as we keep asking that they keep saying no. What are we gonna do? Because I see as we look at investments, couple $100 million. We don't have a problem throwing that around to anybody except to black folk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it as a black man. I don't have a lot of money, but if I could run into another 1,000 or 2 black men who wanted to put up $1,000, I could scrape it up. And that every 1,000 of us who put 1,000 in, that's $1 million. What are we doing to become closer together with an intent to move forward with? We could give everybody money, but if everybody doesn't have a cultural attachment to doing something that's going to empower us beyond just having cash in our pocket, we're going to be pretty much in the same situation after we buy all the candy and the cars and the toilet paper with our name on it. That doesn't build a future. As we talk about the reparations, have we heard them discuss how the echo of delivering the reparations is going to affect the quality of life, not just for those who receive the reparations, but the economy around us?
That's a good question, and I think that hasn't been really been bandied about, and I think that discussion needs to be talked about probably a little bit more than it has been, because when you bring that up, I mean, if you look at the situation of Allensworth down there, between Fresno and Bakersfield,
Allensworth
when that started back in the early 90s.
That was a town put together by an Army gentleman, a black man, Colonel Allensworth, and they were there and doing quite well. And I think they had a water issue and a railroad issue. Yes. They had water, or they didn't have water, but there was a railroad plan to come through the area, and the political policy took it in another direction and helped kill off.
Okay, that railroad stopped it right at Allensworth, and they did have adequate water, but the water source was cut off, so that cuts off the whole town. That pretty much dismantled the whole town.
And people,
early 1900s. It flourished. I wouldn't say flourished. It continued on for many, many years because of one of the speakers at the reparations meeting lived right here in California, Sacramento. She grew up on Allensworth up until like the 1950s. And she said at that time they did not have running water. And this is the 1950s. So this is about 30, 40 years after it was totally dismantled, after the water supply. And they moved the train stop to another town a few miles above and stuff like that. But what I was getting at, though, the money that was flowing into it, they were sustainable, as a black community. Okay, they had schools, they had businesses, hotels, okay, little roadways, so they were sustainable, and the money stayed within the community. Okay, just like Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay, but these are the things that we need to talk about there when we talk about reparations, because you are right. We need to start talking about when you take this money and how we keep it and invest it and grow and prosper more, okay, as they did with Allensworth and what was that, Greenwood in Tulsa?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Greenwood district there.
Go back to those type of concepts so we can be a stronger community, as you said, but we have to do it within ourselves. And that's basically what you're saying is how can we build and sustain and be the community, economic present community
Yeah,
we should be.
Yeah, we can look and see that our community isn't based on where we live. There was a time, here in San Bernardino, that if you talk about the black community, we're talking about a certain side of town. But we find out now that people live everywhere, but we still have a black community. And we're able to see that whether it be virtually or at our churches, at our restaurants, or unfortunately at the hospital or at the jail. We can see that there's those distinctions and places left for black folk.
We are here.
But how we work together, because once again, one of the issues of slavery was the way they were able to divide people based on the amount of melanin displayed in their skin. If you were light-skinned, you were treated different from if you were dark-skinned. And that wasn't just by white people. We have that issue amongst us now in terms of color coding. There's much to be done, and as we look at reparations as a tool, it is just a tool. It's not the solution. So we have to think beyond, what happens. One of the questions I ask, and I'll ask you, I was hoping that we'd have a chance to speak with Chris. I'd asked him last time we talked. But what are you going to do with your reparations money? Now, seriously.
Same thing that you've been talking about, how, of course, we want the 40 acres and the mule, we want the land, we want to do all that, but I want to see how
we say we want the land.
And working with each other, because as you said, we don't even talk about the inner issues that we have, with this colorism and
you're saying
and all that stuff.
You're saying had, and I'm saying have, because
okay.
And I'm saying that we say we want the land, but we've got land in the South that we've walked away from. We've got land in the South that is being taken over by taxes being paid by other folk. In my family, my mother's family, there's 12 children, and some of the children, when they left to Mississippi, I ain't ever going back.
Yeah,
they went back to see grandmother, but they go back for the land. No, some of them have talked so bad about it, their kids don't even want their portion of the land that's been left to them. So when we say we want land, we say, I want land, but we mean I want it on the coastline. I want it in certain places. How we take advantage of resources and understand what a resource is, all of that is out there for people to figure out. And should they do it before they get the money or after they get the money? I know that one of the issues of reparations is that we should do something that's going to assure educational resources, health resources. How do you do that? Do you figure that, okay, if we put everybody's money in their hands, they're going to understand the importance of coming together to build these institutions? Or should we build these institutions because we know that we've been led astray and pushed away from the information that gives us the importance of those institutions? And as we look at those institutions, some people say we don't need them because they've been so bad. Defund the police.
All of that was discussed during these reparations proceedings.
And that's why I'm proud of
all of them. We should take in consideration with that. I mean, as far as you talk about education, people will talk about, well, we need more black schools. We need more HBCUs in California.
And my issue is that
there's so many things that we could do with the money or the funding.
And my issue is
that it comes through there.
All of these good ideas that we can do when we get the reparations money. I think some of those ideas could be put forth now with our little po-mouth money that we got now. I think that as
we shouldn't have to wait. We shouldn't have to wait.
No, we shouldn't.
We can do it now.
Yeah, we shouldn't wait. We don't have to wait. We shouldn't wait. I hear a constant drumbeat about how poor the public education system is treating our black boys, but I'm not seeing enough supplementary educational processes being put together, enough Saturday schools, enough afternoon schools, enough mentoring. I know people are trying it, and that's why I'm getting the idea, because I see other people doing it, and it's not enough.
Well, I have a stepson. I have a 9-year-old stepson here who attends Saturday school. Okay?
See, and
that's being run by a charter school, a black operated charter school. Of course, there's other students, non-black, that also attend this thing. But those are
as a member of California Black Media, I would ask, maybe we can get you to write a story or something exploring the effects of having that black supplementary school for your kid and how it's working, because those are
I would love to do that.
Yeah, the stories that we tell have some impact and influence, and we are in a position to do things that benefit our community, as individuals, as a group. And when you benefit the weakest link in the chain, you benefit the chain. And right now,
I like what I'm hearing.
And as people who have contributed to everything good in America, and you can't show me anything good in America that doesn't have a melanated face somewhere in the picture. We've done that despite the way we've been treated, not because of the way we've been treated. So there's a tremendous benefit to America when it unshackles one of the strongest elements of its society. And we've demonstrated strength simply by being here during a period of obvious, they don't want us here. So
yes.
So, but hey, we're not disappointed. We make great music. We make great attitudes. We demonstrate to America that diamonds are made from pressure. No pressure, no diamond. And we have been making diamond-like contributions. I appreciate how you write. I appreciate the work you're doing. And I definitely would not mind being part of the paycheck that deals with the story about that great school your stepson is going to. Antonio Harvey, keep up the good work. We appreciate the time you've given us today. And it's all because of the commitment your mother and father made. We appreciate them, too.
Great discussion, Mr. Allen. Thank you for having me on the show, and God bless you. And I hope to talk to you soon.
You will. And we want to thank everybody for deciding to spend a little time with us. And we're going to see you next week under two circumstances. One, if the good Lord's willing. Two, if the creek don't rise. God bless you. Eric, thank you. Great show.
KCAA Loma Linda.